Hey everybody, JR from JrZ CarZ, and today we're going to be doing the head gasket on this Craftsman DLS 3500 because the last time I did a video on this thing, I got it running. It wasn't running for a while, and it was smoking like hells. So 9 times out of 10, it's going to be something to do with the head gasket. So I bought one. We're going to crack this open, and I'm going to show you how to change it. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to get this hood out of the way. So you want to remove this connector right here. Okay, so the connector's disconnected, and then what you'll do is basically just lift the hood straight up. Might have to play with it a little bit, pull it back. There it is. Okay, so the next thing you want to do here is you want to remove this upper cover here of plastic. This, you just lift that up, that'll move out of the way. You have 2 bolts here, there's 2 bolts on the back, and it should lift right off afterwards. All right, so the next thing you want to do is you want to take your carburetor and the intake assembly here off. It's 2 10mm bolts right here, and then this can swing right out of the way. Okay, now with that out of the way, we can just pull that off to the side. It doesn't really need to go anywhere. It just needs to be free from the head here. All right, now here's the thing that's going to give you the biggest problem. The exhaust, of course, because it's rusty and because they use a 1/4-inch hex head instead of a bolt head. I hate when they do this. So what I did was I just took a 1/4-inch hex, and then I took a 1/4-inch socket. I rammed it all the way in there so it's all the way bottomed out so you don't have a chance of stripping this out. And then we'll see if we can get this off, hopefully with a 3/8-inch ratchet. We have 1 bolt here, and we have 1 bolt there. That's going to be a little bit more difficult to get to, but let's see if we can get these things off easily. Now, mind you, I have had this soaking a little bit with some pea blaster, so hopefully with a long enough wrench, we can get these things to crack free without breaking. Oh, look at that. Here I'm worried about it. That came right off. Sweet. Oh, well, you take a look at that. That's so nice. I'm glad that that happened because I can't tell you how many times I've broken studs off in any engine that I've worked, and I've had to redo a whole bunch of crap. So I'm actually really happy. I'll get the other one off, and then we'll continue going. Alrighty, there's the other. Came right out. So let's see. All right, so you can see down here, the bracket is held in by this bolt here, which is actually on a boss on the head. So it's not part of the valve cover, but let's get that out of the way right now. That's out of the way. And the exhaust can just flop down to the side there, so it's gone, it's out of your way. Now for the valve cover, which was not even tight, not a single one of them. So that could be why I'm seeing a lot of oil leakage down here. So let's go ahead and get this off. Okay, so now I have the valve cover off. Like I said, it's just the four bolts here. It looks like somebody already had this off because this is silicone in here. Apparently it was leaking for a while. You can see down at the bottom here how it was leaking and coming down. So again, not really that big of a deal because we're replacing it anyway. It comes as part of the kit. Simple design, 2 valve, 1 exhaust, one intake. You have your rocker that's here, and you have your push rod that's here. So I'm not going to mess with any of the adjustments, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rocker off so we can pull the push rods out, because you want to keep these in order. So this push rod here will go with this rocker, and this push rod will go with this rocker. But when we pull the head off, we don't want to mix them up. So this here is a 16 millimeter bolt. There is an adjustment in there too. But what I'm just doing is I'm taking the whole nut off the way that it is, so it'll go back the way that it is too. So let's crack these loose. And they're not under pressure, as you can see. So we'll take these guys out. Right. And then we'll take the push rod out with it. It is a nice long push rod. You want to make sure you keep it in the same orientation too. So this end was the end that went into the rocker. You want to make sure it stays that way too. So we'll do the same thing with this one, and then we'll start getting everything prepped to pull the head off. And just for giggles here, you can actually see these really don't have that much in the way of a spring. It is, you know, stiff obviously, but I can sit here and push it with my finger and compress the spring. Just thought it was something interesting to see. Okay, so looking from above, you could see what we're getting at here. You have this part here, that's the head. Right in here is where the head gasket is, and that's what we're going to be replacing. This here's the cylinder. We're not touching anything else. I just wanted to get this coil out of the way because I figured I needed to remove it, especially to get that wire out of the shielding here. But the shielding I'm going to leave because it's actually not in the way of anything, so we don't need to worry about that. Now, if you look at the front of it here, you can see how many bolts we have to take out to pull the head off, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 right there. You can see the 3 at the bottom now that it focused. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these, starting from the center, working my way to the outside. We'll pull that head off, and we'll get that cleaned up. And just a point to note that these are 3/8 inch sockets here. And I left a spark plug in there because it's really not in the way. I don't think it's going to get in the way of this bolt here, but if it does, you could take it out too. Okay, all the head bolts are out and they're all the same size, so you don't have to worry about them going in a different orientation. So now we're going to give this a little bit of a pry. Oh, didn't even need to. And she pulled right off. All right, yeah, you can see right in here, right at the bottom, it's been blowing oil in. And usually what ends up happening, I'll show you on the cylinder itself, but what you'll see is you could actually see the tracing of it right here, is that the head gasket blows out, and then oil from here, this is where your push rods are, oil from here goes into the combustion chamber. You can see how oily it is in there. And you can see the oil basically just dripping out of the bottom of the head here. But that's what happens, is the oil comes from here. There's a split in the head gasket, goes into combustion, burns out, and that's where you get all the smoke from. All right, to give you a better look at the head gasket here, you can see it's all oily down here, which is the same thing we saw on the head itself. These are the locating pins. So I can see right here, that's exactly what happened, is in between the piston and where the push rods are, that blew out right there. And it was causing oil to go into the combustion chamber, causing all the smoke. So now what we're going to do is just pull this gasket off. We'll clean up that head surface. We'll clean up the cylinder surface. Get this all nice and cleaned up. See, you can even see it on the back side here. So it wasn't even just the front side, it was the back side too. Hold on. Oh yeah, look at that. Right there. It's all just deteriorated. All right, so let's clean this up. Let's clean the head up. We'll get this all nice and clean. We'll put our new gasket on. We'll start putting this guy back together. So JR, what do you like to use to clean these up? I'll tell you what I like. These here, it's very simple, basic. These are plastic razors, right? So what you don't want to do And this goes for anything. This isn't even just for the heads. This will work on any car, anything like that. If you're doing anything, you don't want to use one of these. You don't want to use a straight razor because you could end up gouging the aluminum. And if you gouge the aluminum, even though, I mean, this is pretty well, you know, you won't really gouge it to the point to where it won't seal anymore, but there's always a potential for it. If you're sitting there scraping away and you slip and you gouge it hard enough, you could end up creating leaks. So what I do is I just bought these on Amazon, right? I'll get these on Amazon and I'll give these a good scrape. Now see, this is gonna get everything off to the point to where you can just get some emery cloth in there, some fine sandpaper, and just do the final touches. And then that way you're not gouging up everything that's here. So we'll do the same thing that I'm doing here. We'll complete this side, and then we'll do the same on the head side. And then I'll come back when everything is nice and clean, and we'll show you what it looks like. All right, so here's where we're at. We got a nice clean surface here on the cylinder. We got any of the debris from just you know, cleaning it out of this area here. And this is what the head looks like, all cleaned up. I mean, obviously there's going to be a little bit of pitting up in here because this is open to the elements, so there's really not much I could do with that. But the major areas, especially this area right here, because that's where they all seem to fail, make sure that this is nice and clean and everything else is good. So that's all good to go. And so you can see here, this is where the intake is. The air comes in here, goes into the cylinder, ignites with the fuel, combusts, goes out the exhaust, which is over here. And that's pretty much how that works. All right, so here we go. We got the new head gasket on there. It looks like it lines up well. So we're gonna put that on, put the head back on, and just line up those locating pins. There we go. Okay, it's on there. So now let's go ahead and put a bolt in there to hold it into place. All right, so now that all 8 bolts are back in there, what we're going to do is we're going to torque the head down. We're going to start up here in the top and then work our way in a star pattern around it. The final torque number is going to be 220 inch-pounds or 18 foot-pounds, depends on which torque wrench you have. So we're going to do this in 3 increments. We'll start off at about, say, 90 inch-pounds. We'll go to about 160 inch-pounds, and then we'll finalize everything at 220 inch-pounds. And then we'll go over it one more time just to make sure that all the bolts there are completely torqued. Now already, all 8 bolts are torqued down to 220 inch-pounds. So now it's time to put the valve train back together. And like I said, when we took these apart, we're putting them together back in the same orientation that they came out. So putting that back in, you'll feel it slide into the cup in the back. Put the rocker in the correct position, right down the line. Then you put the keeper on there. Same thing for the other one. You'll feel it slide right into position. And before I put it in there, you can see, if you look right in there, if it'll focus, right in the center of that is where your adjustment would be. Like I said, I'm not adjusting this right now. If we need to come back and adjust it later, we can. But let's get these tightened down. All right, just snug them back up. Don't need to go ramrodding it. Snug. See, that actually took up a little bit of the slop that was in there before because the thickness of the gasket compensated a little bit for it. So now these look like they should be all right. If we need to come back and adjust them, we can, but there's really no play in them, so I think we're good to go. Now, I've gone and I've cleaned up the valve cover gasket here. And in the kit comes with a new gasket. We don't need to use the stupid silicone that was on there, which was terrible. So let's just line this up. Get this on there. Start one. Get the other lined up in there. All right, that's lined up. We're going to get the other two bolts in here. We'll just tighten this down really quick. This isn't going to take, it's not going to take much torque. Again, these are very low torque. I believe those are going to be about 90 inch-pounds. So we'll go ahead and get that done, and I'll come right back. All right, so also in the kit, you get an intake and an exhaust gasket. The exhaust gasket, you could tell, is different than the other one because the intake one is felt, and then this one is metal. It's the same thing as the head gasket and all the other ones. Just clean up the mating surface of your flange, clean up the mating surface of the head, and then put it back on. On this side, I'm not going to use the intake one because this actually has an O-ring in here, so I don't need the felt gasket for it. So I'll put the exhaust and the intake back on. I'm going to mount the exhaust back up on this bolt right here, and then we'll come back and we'll give it a start and see how she does. I got the cover on the engine back on. I got everything all buttoned back up. I got the battery back in it. So now we're going to give it a start and we're going to see how it works. Now, don't be discouraged if you see smoke coming out at first, because it still has all that oil that's in the combustion chamber that you have to burn off. So don't worry about that for a little bit, but we'll run it for a little bit. We'll see if it still smokes. So as you saw when I first started it, it was blowing out a lot of smoke, and that's completely normal. Don't get discouraged because there was a lot of oil that was still trapped in the combustion chamber, and it needed to burn that all off. And then on top of it too, I did spray some gunk on there to try to clean up some of the area that I was in too. So I mean, it's still kind of smoking a little bit there, but that's just from the heat. But what I'm going to do is I'll start it back up. I've ran it for maybe about, I don't know, 8 minutes or so, 8 to 10 minutes. I was driving it around. You can kind of see the tracks over here too. But it's not smoking anymore. So what I'll do is I'll go and turn it on for you, and you can see what it looks like after I ran it for about 10 minutes or so. So there you have it. She's ready to cut some lawn as soon as I put that deck back on her. Do me a favor, if this helped you out, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it around with your friends, because it helps the channel out and it helps me bring more content like this to you. So I hope everybody's staying safe and having a good time, and I'll catch you all in the next video.